Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Odyssey, the podcast where we explore the highs and the lows of entrepreneurship, featuring the bold and the brave who dare to dream. Every episode, we dive deep into the strategies that work, the challenges that teach, and the moments that change everything. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting out, these are the insights and experiences you need to fuel your own Odyssey.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur's Odyssey. I'm Brandon Moore. I'm so happy to have you here on the podcast. I'm so thankful for you guys watching. Today we're going to continue our series, How to Get Along with Anyone, Anywhere. This is a series based on an upcoming book that I'm in the process of writing and editing and getting to you guys. I hope to have a launch date pretty soon, but as soon as I know, I'll let you know. We've gone through several of the ways to get along with people, and today we're going to focus on asking questions. Now, a part of the process of listening, we talked about asking questions to get clarity, to have clarifying questions. But today, we're going to talk a little bit more about asking questions when you're with people, because questions show that you care. When you value people, you want to know more about them. I found out a few years ago that I just noticed, I didn't find out, but I noticed that several times when people ask me how I'm doing, I would say fine, but I wouldn't ask them how they're doing. And it may sound small and gosh, it was so self-centered of me. But what was happening is it wasn't that I didn't care about them or about people. I just got so much tunnel vision about what I was doing and what project I was working on and what my goals were and trying to get there that I didn't make time to find out about people. And it doesn't help that I'm kind of an introvert. Naturally, I will go to a party or something and sit down. And if people come to me, I'm happy to talk with them. But for me to get outside of that, it's work. I have to decide. I have to be intentional about getting outside myself and going to talk to people. And I can see introverts all over the world cringing at just the thought of having to talk to other people. And I'm going to help you today. But first, I want to look at Luke 2:46. And it says, "Now, so it was that after 3 days, they found him." This is when Jesus was around 12 years old. The parents came to Jerusalem for a feast, and then they packed up the family to go back to where they were from. And then after a couple of days' travel, they realized that Jesus wasn't with them. Parents of the Year awards. But they found Jesus. Where did they find him? They found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking questions. So he was using his listening skills, and then he was asking questions. Now, what happened later is that the Bible says that they were astounded at his understanding of the scriptures. Well, how did he share his understanding if all he was doing was asking questions? And I think that he asked was really good questions to help them understand, to help them find awareness and bring them to revelation. And again, in a coaching meeting, in a coaching session, our job as a coach is to help the coachee become aware and understand. And then our job as a coach is to help the coachee become aware and then understand what they learned, and then maybe be able to take some responsibility and fix some things. And it's all happening on the inside of them. It's not something that the coach is doing. He's just asking really good questions. As a friend, the Bible says in order to be a friend, you have to be friendly. Well, to be friendly means that you care about people and you want to know more about them. Now, I made a list here, and this is really a side list. It's a bonus list in my book, and it's a bonus list for you here today, that for all the people, introverts that want to go somewhere and want to have conversation, you can write these on note cards and then take them with you. I used to, when my kids' friends would come over, they would make fun of me because I had only a couple of questions that I would ask. and most of it had to do with what do you want to be when you grow up. And so I didn't have a lot of conversation skills when it comes to finding interest in new people, and not finding interest, but getting to know new people. So here's the list for all my introvert friends. And introverts get it, extroverts, that you're not going to understand this. This makes no sense to you to have a list or even to put this on note cards, but you can do that if you want to. Nobody's gonna. You can write it on your hand. It's a short list, so you can just write it on your hand. These are 5 questions that you can ask to get the conversation started with a new person. 1, how's your family? That's everybody. People love to talk about their family. If you know a little bit about them, might ask them specifically about their wife or their dog, or about their kids, about anybody that they consider family. And yes, pets are included. People love their pets, and so they're willing to talk about it. And so again, these are conversation starters. These are help you getting to that point of, hey, I want to get to know you better, and so I want to start a conversation with you. Another conversation starter you might use when you're getting to know people is, what are you working on? For somebody like me that has several projects going at the same time, you probably open the door for a 30-minute conversation because people like to talk about what they're working on. They talk about their work. And sometimes people get really detailed in it, and some people give you an overview. But I was in the store the other day, and I was buying some paints because I do a little artwork here and there, and a guy asked me, so what are you working on? And I was kind of shocked because, again, introverted, I'm there to buy stuff, not to talk. And so I came out of my shell. I was like, oh, I'm doing this and this. And he said, great. And so, of course, then I turned and ran because I'm shy, right? And so, but again, what are you working on? It's a great question. Lots of people have hobbies. If they may be working on one of their hobbies, they may be working on something else, but it's something that people will want to talk about. Here's another question, number 3. Remember, you can write these on your palm or on note cards, and there's nothing wrong with that. You might get made fun of, but that's okay. Who cares what people think? You're wanting to get to know people, right? And so, number 3, what are you doing after this? If you're at work, hey, what are you doing after work? If you're at a party, hey, what are you doing after this? If you're at a baseball game, hey, what are you doing after this? People will probably tell you, hey, I'm probably going to go do this, and my kids are having a birthday party at 2, and then we're going to go out on a date. That's awesome. How long have you been married? So you can see how all of these questions lead into other questions, follow-up questions. And if you're prepared, then you might actually write down a follow-up question just in case you get stymied in the conversation. So anyway, number 1 was, how's your family? Number 2, what are you working on? Number 3, what are you doing after this? I thought about asking with Joey Tribbiani, how you doing? But I didn't put that on the list. You can use that if you want to, if it's a co-ed meeting. And I didn't put it on the list. And number 4, this is a topical question. You can choose any topic and just say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Topics to avoid, politics and politics. But you might, talk about, hey, what do you think about abstract realism? Because I brought up art earlier. Or what do you think about the salvation methods or the evangelism methods that your church is using? Or what do you think about this? What do you think about that? It's just one of those conversation starters that will get the conversation rolling. And choose your topics wisely, because you don't want to start a fight. And again, if you don't share, if you're trying to get to know somebody, you're not trying to push your opinions on them. So you're coming from a place of curiosity, then asking the question is not going to start a fight. You're just really trying to get to know them. And number 5, this is for all the book lovers and bookworms like myself. What books are you reading right now? And for me, it doesn't matter if nonfiction. I've got a list of books that I've read, and I've got a list of books that I want to read. And I'm always at least reading 2 books at a time. I've got one fiction book going most of the time and then one nonfiction book going at one time. So I love to talk about books, and people that like to read, they also like to talk about books. And if you're not a big reader, let me say something. You should be a big reader. You should be reading, especially if you're wanting to figure out business, you're wanting to figure out personality, psychology, relationships. You should be a big reader. Read some of my books, which we've talked about a couple of times. But I love talking about books. People who read love to talk about books. All right. So these are all just conversation starters. These are quick, easy questions to get the ball rolling. These questions say, hey, I value you and I want to know more about you. I want to get to know who you are. And so all of these questions are very helpful to get that ball rolling. There's another set of questions that we'll get into, but first I want to talk about what is it that we're actually saying. Asking curious, probing questions. The first word in there is curious. You really, having that motive of curiosity. I just want to know you. I just want to understand you. Being curious is a great way to get to know people and to start off a relationship. Now, there's something that you might need to understand is to avoid using questions that begin with the word why. Well, the reason that you don't use the word why is almost every time that you use the word why in a question, it sounds accusatory. It sounds like you're accusing somebody of doing something they shouldn't have done. And no matter the tone or the way you say it, it always has this slightly accusatory method. You can use what. Instead of saying, why did you do that? You might say, well, what are the criteria that led you to believe that? Or what are the things that led you to make that decision? The what question is definitely a curious question. The why question sometimes creates that accusatory. Now, if you're asking the question to yourself, why is a great reflective question. Why do I respond this way when this happens? Why do I want to become an entrepreneur? Why does my company produce this revenue stream and not this revenue stream? Those are internal whys. Those are for reflection. Those are great. But when you point that why at somebody else, it becomes like pointing a finger at somebody and accusing somebody of something. When and this happens to a lot of us, when I first got my driver's license, I had that taste of freedom. I wanted to get out. I wanted to go see the town. I wanted to just drive around for driving's sake, not have any place to go or a place to be. But what happened as soon as you touch the door, parents will ask, so where are you going? And then they'll ask, who's going to go with you? Are there any adults there? And then this rapid fire set of questions starts coming at you. And then all of a sudden, instead of you just wanting to go and spend time with your friends, now you're under the interrogation light. And so that's not the kind of questions that we're talking about. We want to ask curious, probing questions because we value somebody and we want to know what's going on with them. I think coaching questions are really good, and there's a lot of coaching questions. There's a book called Coaching for Performance, and it has an index of questions, probably 100 questions you can ask during a coaching meeting. And all of those are useful at pinpointing issues and helping people overcome those issues. But as a friend, you might find yourself in a place where somebody's coming to you for help or coming to you to talk about things. And the worst thing that you can do is try to solve that problem and give them a lecture as to how you would solve it or what they should do. And we talked a little bit about that in the avoid criticism, because sometimes when we give our advice, it sounds like criticism to the hearer. It sounds like you're telling somebody else, you're not enough, you don't know, let me tell you how to do it right. And that's what we want to avoid as a friend, as a confidant, as somebody that's when you get to know somebody and then they come to you and they tell you what's going on in their lives, that's not the time for you to try to fix it. It's not the time for you to try to tell them all the things that they're doing wrong, but it might be a time for you to ask curious, probing questions. Now, these are probing questions, not leading questions. Probing questions are like when you have a flashlight in a dark room. You're just trying to shine the light on the issue or the thing that's going on in their life. And these questions are about any number of conversations that you might have with somebody, a curious person who doesn't necessarily know the answer, but they want to find out what it is that the other person is seeing. Let's say I have a flashlight and I'm getting into a cave, but I've got my earbud in and I'm talking to somebody on the phone, and so they're wanting to know what I'm seeing in that cave. And that's a lot of times what we are as friends. We're not going through the issue with the friend. We're actually on the outside trying to figure out what they're seeing in their life, what they see as the issue might be. And so these questions, the next set of questions that I'm going to talk about, I think will really help you. But first, to be curious means that you don't know the answer, but also means that you care. And the important part is it comes from humility. You have to humble yourself to value others. If you don't come from a place of humility, you might tell the other person in your questions and the way you hold yourself and the way that you're asking the questions that you're better than them. And that's not what a friend would do. That's not what friends do, is they want to find out, they want to help, they want to hear, they want to listen. And asking curious questions will help you do that. When I was in my late 40s, which wasn't a long time ago, I'm only 51 right now, if you wanted to know, but I took piano lessons when I was in 3rd grade to 5th grade for 3 years. And those 3 years were for piano lessons. I hated it. My parents basically had to threaten me with beatings just to get me to practice for 30 minutes. And then my piano teacher, she actually was the organ player at my church. Let me just tell you, she played the organ at our very traditional church. Let me tell you, she was very traditional. And for me, as a 3rd grader, I was so bored. It was so boring. Now, I took those lessons and I got out of those 3 years a basic music theory understanding. Great. And then I think 6th grade, I played the trombone, which I hated that absolutely. Not just because it was just an awkward instrument, but then I had to carry the thing home and I walked home. And so the other kids would make fun of me because I'm carrying this huge trombone to get to my house every day. And that was awful. Don't let your kids do that. Don't do that to your kids. All right. Anyway, they can play the trombone. Just get them 2 of them, one for the school and one at home, so they don't have to carry it back and forth. Anyway, so I didn't touch music again until I was 19 years old. I started picking up the guitar. And learning guitar was a lot different because you can start out with learning chords. And after learning a handful of chords, I could actually play songs that we sung. And then my passion and love of music came back. I was excited about learning to play. Well, a few years ago, I wanted to start learning the piano again. And this time, though, I went to a piano teacher and I asked him to teach me the way I learned the guitar, to teach me chords and chord progressions and inversions. Then I can actually play the songs that we play at church. And I really enjoyed that method and I loved it. But first, I had to go to have piano lessons. And that was odd because I had to sit in the waiting room with a bunch of kids. And that was humbling. But I was there for a purpose. And I humbled myself to learn the piano. And just like that, when you want to learn about people, you just have to be humble and come have that curious, humble mentality to where you really desire to want to learn more about your friend, the people that you connect with. So let's get into the next set of coaching questions. Michael Bungay Stanier, and I probably messed that name up. He wrote the book, The Coaching Habit, Say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever. He has several examples of probing questions that you might use. One is called the kickstart question. He asks, what's on your mind? Many times when your friends come in, they might look at you, they might really feel like, or you might really sense to them that they're going through something. And so a way to start the conversation, to start being a friend, is say, hey, what's on your mind? I can tell that there's something on your mind. What is it? It's not the same as asking, what are you thinking? That's really kind of intrusive because people don't want to share what they're thinking about at any given point. But if there's something nagging on them, there's some big issue that they're going through, you might ask them, what's on your mind? It's a way to tell people that you're here for them. And if you want to talk about it, I'm here to do that. The next question is called the all question. It's called, and what else? Because sometimes when people will start describing the solution or an issue or something that's going on in their life, and you want to keep them talking, you might just say, what else is going on? What else is happening there? What else did that person say? What else did that person do? All of the all question is just so simple, but it gets a lot of results. It gets people continuing to talk and continuing to share. And as long as they're sharing, they're becoming more aware of what the big picture might be. The third question is called the focus question. And this helps when there's an issue, but you really haven't found the real problem. They're talking about everything that's been happening, but you really haven't found the real problem. The question is, what's the real challenge here? Many people talk about symptoms rather than the actual problem that they're dealing with. They talk about symptoms rather than the issues that they're really going through. And so you might also ask, so what is the problem? What's the real challenge here? The next question, this is called the foundation question. When people are sharing their issues, they're sharing their questions, or they're sharing their dreams and goals and all of this, sometimes they're sharing what they think other people want them to say, or they're sharing what they think you want them to say. And so this question is, what do you really want? It's not a selfish thing to ask yourself what you really want. Psalm 37:4 says, and he shall give you the desires of your heart. That has two meanings. Not only will he give you the desire, put the desire in you, but then he brings that thing to pass. And so when you get to that place of what do you really want, that may be a want and a desire that God has placed on the inside of you. And that may be what the will of God is for your life, but you think it's selfish. And so you've never said it out loud. And so the foundation question will help you. The next question is one of my favorites. It's called the lazy question. It says, it is, how can I help? Why is that the lazy question? You're putting me out there like I'm going to have to do something. Well, when you ask somebody, how can I help? That's something you ask after you've really gnawed on the issue and you've talked about so many different things. And then finally, what does it do? When you ask, how can I help? It gets the person to start thinking about possible solutions. And so in their mind, they start developing ways that their problem and issue could be solved, and then how you might help in that. Well, the thing is that when you ask, how can I help? You have every right to say, well, I can't do that, but I can do this. And so you've got them to start thinking about a solution, and then you set a boundary for where they end and you begin. And so you can say, I can't do that. That would be me meddling in your business and getting involved in your issue, but I can do this. Of course, a lot of Christians will say, well, I can't do that, but I can pray. Prayer is good, and we should pray for people. And if you have to, you should pray for them right then. Pray for them while you have them with you. But then you might also be able to do something else. Take some more action. Be a help to them, but make sure that you stay within your boundaries. The next question is the final question. Oh, no, it's not the final question. Start over. The next question is a strategic question. This question helps you to identify your plan going forward. And it says, if you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? And the thing is every time we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else. And I love Danny Silk's books, the books that I've read, and I've probably read 3 or 4 of them in the last 2 months. But in one of them, and I can't remember which one, he says that sometimes when you're asked to do something, or when God puts on your heart to do it, we're powerful when we follow through, and we give up our power when we choose not to. But even choosing not to do something is a choice. If you choose to go and help with laundry, or you choose to get out of bed and help with feeding the dogs, then you're being powerful at that moment. But if you choose to stay in bed, then you're giving up that power. But is it still a choice? To say yes to staying in bed means you're saying no to being a servant, to being a help to those around you. And I think everybody should have, and this Jim Collins wrote the book Good to Great, and he said everybody should have a stop doing list. It's not enough to have a to-do list, but we also should have a stop doing list. We should also have a stop doing list. And so when we have if we say yes to these things, what else are we saying no to? And so that's the coaching question. If you say yes to this, what are you saying no to? The last question that we'll talk about today is, what was the most useful for you? Now, this is almost entirely used in a coaching session, or maybe a seminar that might be done. People send out surveys at the end so that people can fill out what they learned. But really, as a friend, this question says, I want you to reflect. When you're talking to your friends, you might ask, instead of what's most useful to you, you might ask, well, what did you learn from that experience? What did that experience teach you? Or what was the result of that experience, and how can that be applied to right now? It's a reflection question. It says, as a friend, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I want to ask you, what did you learn from this process? What did you learn from this process? What did you learn from making that decision in the past? And so you're asking these questions in order to help them become aware and take responsibility. Asking probing questions, and these are just a list of questions 2 sets of lists that I just throw out there for your edification, for you to use, maybe in furthering and deepening your connection with other people. In conversations, it's okay to keep things light and just talk about the weather, or talk about sports, or talk about something else. But at some point, with close friends, the conversation is going to become a little bit more. And having an understanding of these questions and how they can help your friends and yourself find solutions and find answers, I think that'll help you also connect and bond with your friends and get along that much better. Well, thanks for listening. I appreciate you. This has been another episode of the Entrepreneur's Odyssey. I hope that these questions will help you. I hope that the list of how to get along will help you. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Odyssey. We hope today's journey has left you inspired and ready to push the boundaries of what you thought was possible. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to rate and review us, and share this episode with someone who could use a little inspiration on their entrepreneurial journey. Join us for more insights and stories. Until then, keep chasing your dreams and write your own Odyssey.